Hello, it's good to be with you again. I decided to build off my last message and do a video again because the last one sparked some really thoughtful responses, which I appreciated, so I figured I'd stay with this format and build upon it. Now, over the last few messages, I've been touching on the rising pressure and uncertainty executives are facing. And given this reality, I see almost every executive facing something that is adding actually more pressure and stress to their role. And honestly, it's something I still grapple with from time to time myself. I think of it as the executive paradox. At some point, most leaders cross an invisible line where it stops feeling like you're responsible for your role and starts feeling like you're responsible for everything. The results, the team, and how it all lands. Now, to be fair, at your level, you are accountable for results. That part is real. But here's the tension, and it's easy to lose sight of this. Yes, you're accountable for results, but you don't control the variables that determine whether they actually happen or not. And as the pressure rises, it's very easy to start acting as if you do, trying to manage, push, force outcomes that were never yours to control in the first place. I got a reminder of this while working on my book. Writing it was very straightforward because I was fully in charge of that part of the process. But once that part is done, I have no control over who reads it, whether it resonates, who is willing to endorse it, what kind of impact it actually has. There's a part of me that wants to push harder in those situations, force momentum, make something happen. And I can feel what happens when I go there. I get tighter, more patient, a little more forceful than I need to be. Maybe you can relate. And interestingly, I become less effective in generating my desired outcome, and that's when it clicks in. I don't control the outcomes. But I'm not without influence. What I do shape every day is the environment, the one inside me and around me, that makes the outcomes I aspire to create more likely. And when you really look at performance inside an organization, there are a number of critical levers you use to foster a high-performing outcome. Your presence, clear direction and priorities, generating strong alignment across your leaders, creating well-defined expectations grounded in standards, the quality of conversations that generate solid commitments and execution, the capability of your talent and leaders, and creating shared ownership and accountability. And maybe a couple others depending on your situation. Now, most experienced leaders know these, but under pressure, I find a few of these quietly shift. And those are usually the ones that foster success in all the others. The first is your presence. Not how you appear, but the state you're actually operating from. Because whether you realize it or not, leaders set the tone for how the system functions. If you're tight, rushed, or carrying pressure, you don't just feel that, your people do. And here's the part that's easy to miss. When your presence tightens, your field of awareness and your attention narrows. You're more likely to miss what's actually happening, including misalignment. Which brings us to the second one, generating alignment. Now, most leaders assume it's there. Hey, we talked about it. Everybody's clear. But in reality, people walk away with different interpretations. Priorities start to slip and compete. And misalignment shows up in friction and slower execution. And if your presence is already tight, you don't always see that clearly. You feel it later in the results. And then there's the third, setting clear expectations. And this is one that often gets underestimated because even when you do align, if expectations aren't clear and revisited, there's no mechanism to hold alignment in place. So people start to interpret things their own way. Standard shit drift. Decision making slows down. And again, the leader feels the gap and then has the feeling they have to step in. So now you've got the dynamic. Presence tightens, alignment slips, expectations blur. And without realizing it, you move from leading the system to carrying it. That's the paradox. You're accountable for results, But the more you try to direct control over them, the more you work against the very outcomes you're trying to create. The shift is learning how to take full responsibility for creating an environment of high performance without gripping the outcome. Because when your presence creates steadiness, when alignment is real, not assumed, when expectations are clear and held, the system starts to produce more consistently. And just as importantly, your own experience of leading changes. It gets clearer, more focused, less heavy, more meaningful. So maybe the question to sit with this week is simple. Not how do I drive better results, but what kind of environment am I actually creating now that naturally generates them? That's the work of leadership. And when you get that right, results tend to follow. Now, if this resonated or sparked a different perspective that you appreciate, I'd love to hear how you're thinking about it. In the meantime, have a great week ahead, and thanks for listening.